Hey friends, Graham here from the recordingrevolution.com. Welcome back to another $300 studio challenge. We are in mixing day. So we're at the very end here. We're going to wrap some stuff up next week in another video, but today I wanted to give you a peek inside the GarageBand session. Now that you've seen, hopefully, me build out this song from drums with one microphone to guitars and bass, some direct, some mic'd up. Vocals, percussion, even some virtual keyboard stuff played on my laptop's keyboard, and you've seen it come together. Sort of peeked into my brain a little bit as to how I would record a song if all I had were $300 using this little setup. And so I've been mixing it the last couple of days when I've had pockets of time, and I want to just show you some of the cool things I've been doing in the mix, working with certain challenges when you only have one microphone on the drum kit, and then just some of the things that came together nicely in the arrangement that might be helpful to you, and you'll get a sneak peek as to kind of what it's sounding like. I'll play you the final version in next week's video. We'll sort of talk about some of the lessons that I've learned during this challenge. So let's take a look at a smidget of the song here.
If I'm so weak, then how's it possible that I would find hidden strength inside? If we were so strong, there would no longer be so much senseless pain and strife. 'Cause we weren't made to be our own gods, functional saviors from within. No, rather we're made to look up and out, helplessly crying out like children, or like children. Oh, I need something more, someone stronger and higher than I need something more, someone to reach down and pull me out of myself.
So that'll give you a little taste as to what it's coming to sound like. And if you're unfamiliar with the song, we did this all with $300 worth of stuff. So let me just poke out some of the challenges that I was facing, and you could have guessed the biggest one, and that's the drums. So let's go there. Mic'd up the entire drum kit with this one microphone. And when you do one mic on a drum kit, you're inherently having to make a compromise, because I'm trying to capture a few different things and find one spot that captures them all in a balanced way. So I may have wanted more snare or more fatness on the snare, but if I moved it too close to the snare, I would have lost some of the kick drum. Or if I moved it too close to some of the cymbals to get more crispness in the cymbals, I would have lost some of the snare. It's a balancing act. So to recreate maybe a more multi-mic'd drum kit sound, I did some multi-processing on the drums. So take a look at what's going on here. Let's get here in the verse. Here is the raw drum track. And what I have going on here is a little bit of EQ. Now in GarageBand, they have this smart control thing now. They've changed it a little bit. So it's kind of like a channel strip. Fortunately, they let you get in and do a little bit more control in the EQ. I've cut out some low end on the original drum track, some low mids. So I did like a high pass filter. I cut out some low mids around 380, scooped out a little bit around 3K, and then I opened it up a little bit with a shelf and a little bit of a bump here from 6K on, 6.5K on. So if you take away the EQ, this is what the drums really sounded like. That's what I turned it into, and there's a reason why, because I decided I'm going to get my low end from a copy of the drum performance, and I'm going to get the fatness on the snare from a copy of the drum performance. So that was the thinking into EQing this drum track in the way I did. If I just left the drum track alone and wanted some gentle EQ like you may have saw in the very first video with the drums, I wouldn't have done anything this extreme. I kind of turned this into the top end for the snare crack, top end for the kick beater, and the top end for the cymbals. I kind of turned it into an overhead. And then I got some of the beef in two different ways. So before. And the other thing you notice, obviously it gets brighter, but a lot of that weird room sound goes away. It's in the lower mids and in one of the mid-range 3K-ish. There's some weird rings that just don't sound good in this room. And when you're smacking the drum in here, it really sounds nasty. And so I was trying to find those and take them out. So if I play it one more time, just so you hear, obviously the drum sound thins out and it opens up in the top end with those cymbals and the air on the snare drum. Those are the obvious what you hear be brought into the drum sound, but listen to what goes away from the drum sound. I think that's even more important to getting this more produced drum sound with one mic. Take a listen. Much cleaner, right? So that's what's happening. Again, that's kind of my drum curve. I've scooped out 1, 2, 3 places, and I boosted in one place, in 2 places. That was the first move on the drums. Then I added a copy of the whole drum performance, and I called it Drums Kick, and you can see why. Take a look at this EQ curve. This is a massive, ridiculous boost at around 50 hertz, and then a humongous shelf, a high shelf just taken out to just reduce a lot of the intelligible stuff on the drums just so I can create a beefy track. So this is what's going on in this track. Get on the verse. Not the best kick drum sound, but I was doing this while listening to the other sounds. I'm trying to just bring in some low end to complement the above sound. So we kind of go from this raw track that's clean and we add some bottom end. Gives a little bit more weight at the bottom. And then the thing that kills me a lot on this track is I'm so used to the really fat snare sound we got on the original version of this song when I recorded it a year ago. And we got that sound because I was able to mic it up with a mic on the snare drum. And I had a sort of fat mic in the center of the kit, and the two together gave the snare drum this really fat sound. I didn't have that liberty during this challenge. So my ear wanted to hear a fatter, rounder snare drum. One has more weight, like in that low mid range, like 200, 250, 300K. Excuse me, 300 hertz. So I decided to make one more copy of the drums purely to find some weight in the snare drum sound. So what I did was I did an EQ curve here where I rolled off a lot of the low end because I'm focusing on the snare drum. Then there's this massive boost here at around 130. It was around 200, and then I kept getting a little bit lower to get some real weight, that snare. And then I've scooped out some low mids that are nasty around 345, and I scooped out 1.5K to just sort of like not bring, I didn't want to bring in more crispness on the snare. I wanted to create some fatness. So here's what I got on this track. The kick drum hit sounds nasty. What I'm doing on this EQ makes the kick drum sound nasty, so again, it's a compromise. I don't love that, but what I love what it's doing to the snare drum. It adds weight to the snare drum, because if you take away the EQ, you hear just what the raw track was. makes the snare sound cool if you could ignore the kick drum. So my goal was to make it sound as good as I could and then help you ignore the kick drum by giving you kick drums on 2 other tracks, and then when everything else, it should sound pretty good. So here they are together. Not bad at all. Both the kick track and the snare track, which they're not really kick and snare, but again, those tracks, you know what I'm talking about. I've got a fair amount of compression. I don't know what this compressor does. It has an amount knob, and then it has an on or off switch. Very, very simple controls. So all I did was turn it on and crank it up till it sounded cool. I don't know what the attack and release settings are. I don't know what the ratio is. I don't know if there's a knee. I don't know anything about this compressor other than I cranked it to get more smack on the kick and the snare. I don't know if there's there's none on the raw track. So here we go. We kind of go from this, the original raw drum track, to then the thinned out raw drum track, and I'll add the process tracks underneath it. You kind of hear the evolution of this one mic drum sound. All right, let's back up here. Pretty massive change. I think it's a humongous improvement. Is it the best drum sound I've ever heard or recorded? No. Does it work? Yes. That's what's really, really cool, is that all of that sounds cool with the rest of the band.
That we have the power to save ourselves. Ourselves. Oh, I need something more, someone stronger and higher than I need something.
Super awesome. Crisp cymbals, fat snare, beefy kick drum. It totally works. So it's got a vibe. I can't change it into something it's not, but I tried to bring out the best of what we had. That was the most of my work on this mix, honestly. Everything else is very simple, so I kind of want to show you just how I like to think sometimes with some panning decisions and some effects decisions. So to make a very simple, not many tracks song big, go with real simple things like LCR panning, mono delays, and real simple, you know, touches. So like the bass and the acoustic guitar, I just put up the middle because honestly, they drive the song, and there's no second acoustic guitar, and so I just made it very mono in the verses, right?
If there was a way I could fix all of this.
It sounds great. Why not keep it mono? There's nothing really competing for those sounds. It's only a drum, a bass, guitar, an acoustic, and a vocal. So they can all live up the middle. And what I love about that is it allows the choruses to pop, because then I just have a couple guitars. There's one on the left that's panned all the way left. And then I've got, you know, in the bigger choruses, a guitar all the way on the right. So let me mute the Wurlitzer for a second here. Super wide panning, right? And they're complementing each other. So just those are the main guitar parts, and then obviously the bass and the acoustic are up the middle. The Wurlitzer was just sort of a nice sort of in between left and in between right and center, because I already had something on the far right, and I wanted it to stick out because I leave these nice gaps sometimes, which I've basically placed. Since everything is hard left, center, or right, it leaves gaps. So when you strategically place something there, I can hear it great, which is nice. So I put the Wurlitzer in one of them, and then I put the shaker in one and the tambourine in the other. Everything else is center or dead left and right, and that's a really easy way to get a really big open sound. Vocals, same thing. Got the vocals up the middle, um, and then I've got some the low harmonies panned left and right hard, and they're more muted because they're octave lower.
Children, oh, I need something more, someone stronger and higher than I need something
Just give it a little bit of texture. You don't notice them too much, but you know they're there.
more, someone stronger and higher than I.
Could have put them up the middle. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes I like harmonies out wide, and then other harmonies I kept a little tighter, the high ones later on. But real simple placement. We don't have that many tracks, so that's how you get a bigger sound when you have fewer tracks, is just pan them out left, right, and center. And again, I love delays because they give you that sort of, out of this world sound. It doesn't sound like I'm just this dry little performance in my little room. But I don't love stereo delays as much as I used to. I used to love stereo delays because the voice would swim around in your ears. And sometimes that's appropriate, and so sometimes I will use that. But I have found myself going back to mono delays more and more and more. And so, again, the GarageBand is very, very simple. Beyond the channel strip that most of these tracks come with, which is, an EQ and a compressor and some built-in reverbs, there's nothing really else. You have to actually go turn this little box on here, down here, this little input information box to allow you to use the effects that used to come with GarageBand. They have a couple, and I couldn't find them for the longest time, so I had to get on YouTube. Of all people, again, I don't know anything about GarageBand, so I too look at tutorials on YouTube. So if you make really good GarageBand tutorials, let me know. I might check them out. And finally found the old plugins that have been in GarageBand forever. So they have a mono delay, and I love that because then I can just get the echo on my voice, which takes it up a notch in the chorus without it swimming and crowding up my panning. It keeps it still up the middle. So we get here into the chorus.
I need something more, someone stronger.
It's a nice little touch, right? And then with the vocals, if people care to know, I know vocals are a big deal. Very, very simple work on the vocals. Every time it's going to be compression, and I have a fair amount of compression. I took the amount knob and cranked it. And then on EQ wise, it's just high pass filter, a little dip in the low mids to clean it up a little bit, and the slightest little bump, dB and a half, 1.5 dB in the 4, 5, 6K range to make it a little bit more present. So here's what the verse sounds like when you turn the compression and the EQ off, and a little bit of the ambience. The ambient knob, whatever that is on GarageBand, is less of a fake reverb and more of like a either super short slapback or like a room sound. And I really like that because it gives it a little bit of a touch.
If there was a way I could fix all of this, then no more tears would need be cried. If there was a way I could look deep inside and find the answers, fix all of this, then no more tears would need be cried. If there was a way I could look deep inside.
Very, very subtle stuff, right? I'm just opening up the vocals a little bit. Compression helps the performance stay a little bit more upfront and pumping a little bit. Again, I don't even understand the compressor that they give me. I just have been using it. So very simple stuff. The biggest transformation were the drums. And then I'm just using some simple LCR panning. If you don't know what that is, check out some of my posts and videos on that. It's a very, very simple concept that really helps you get big, wide mixes without crowding things around, and just be strategic about some of your panning and placement. And then just it's arrangement stuff, cleaning up stuff here or there, a little bit of automation on some of the drum fills to bring up certain elements, but mostly trying to get a level balance using reference tracks. The one thing that is cool is that GarageBand does have a master output, and it has an EQ on it. And so I did some EQing at the end while I was referencing a track and was trying to fill out some warmth that was missing in my track, and actually dip out some top end that was a little too harsh in comparison to the reference. I actually smoothed it out a little bit. Um, and then there's a little bit of compression on the master fader, and this bright knob. I don't know what that is, but I know it sounds counterintuitive. It took out some harshness, but I added some brightness. I have no idea what that knob does, but it sounded cool with it on. So very simple stuff. You can kind of hear the difference that makes. You may or may not like it before or after, but I liked it. So here's with the three effects on: EQ, compression, and bright, and then I'll turn them off. Let's get to chorus.
I need something more, someone stronger and higher than I need something more, someone to read.
Pretty subtle, but that was happening mostly in context with reference tracks. So hopefully that gives you a little taste of what's happening in the mix. I'm going to wrap this thing up this week, and next week we're going to sort of present the final mix, so you can take a listen to it. You can even download it probably and listen to it where you want to listen to it. And then I'm going to sort of break through some of the lessons that I've learned from this challenge of having to do an entire full song production start to finish with only $300 of equipment. All inside of a program that I've never really mixed in before. So thanks for joining this challenge. I have heard some incredible, encouraging stories from all of you about how this has set you free a little bit more, which has been the entire point of this, to get you to think, huh, if that's possible with 300 bucks, then there's really no reason why I can't go make a record today with what I have. And that's why the Recording Revolution exists in the first place. So go make some great music. Let me know your feedback and thoughts below this video. Subscribe if you haven't already to these videos. You should be subscribed, so you'll check out the one that comes out next week. And stay tuned for these final wrap-up thoughts next week in the video. I'm looking forward to ending this series on a high note and hearing how it's impacted you some more, and see what you guys do with this as you move forward. Make some great music. We'll talk to you all next week. Take care.